Hi, my name is Rich Simon. I'm editor of Psychotherapy Networker. And editors are people who like to ask questions and have conversations. So it has been my great privilege over these last 38 years to be the editor of Psychotherapy Networker and have permission to call up just about anybody in our field who has an interesting idea or an innovation and get them in a conversation and find out more about it. So year-round, what I'm doing is I'm just having all these interesting conversations, revealing conversations about the most essential issues in human relationships. And this time of the year, however, it gets particularly intense, and we're just wrapping this up, where we're putting together the annual Psychotherapy Networker Symposium, our annual tribal gathering of 3,500 mental health professionals in Washington, D.C. Because in the run-up to the Networker Symposium, I get to speak to dozens and dozens of leading minds and clinical innovators in psychotherapy. There are 600,000 licensed mental health professionals in our field, and over the period of the last 3 or 4 months, I feel like I've talked to just about every one of them. And the goal is to put together a conference that gives the big picture in one place at one time of what's going on in our profession. And it's not only the information, but there's something about being at the symposium that is like no other experience. A few years ago, I had a conversation at the symposium. Somebody came up to me and they told me, hey Rich, I really look forward to the symposium every year. It's so meaningful for me because the rest of the year, I feel like I'm practicing in isolation. I work in an agency, I'm doing my paperwork, I'm seeing my clients, I'm trying to figure out how to deal with my stuck cases, but I'm basically doing it on my own. At the symposium, each year, I get to feel like I'm part of a profession. I'm part of something that's larger than me. And I just have to tell you, that makes all the difference. I love being at the symposium, but I hold on to that experience for the rest of the year. And you know what? I know what that guy feels like because that's how I feel as I pull together the conference each year. And I have the great privilege of talking to the 125 or so people who are on our faculty and really get a sense of what's this big picture. So what did we find? What's different about this year's symposium than its symposium in years past? Well, it's our theme, first of all. We're calling it the colors of tomorrow. It really is the question of what does the future hold for psychotherapy? What is it? What's ahead for us? What are the new ideas that are kind of shaping where psychotherapy is going? What are the economic realities that are going to shape how we make a living? And out of all these conversations, these dozens and maybe even hundreds of conversations that have gone into this year's meeting, there are 3 or 4 big ideas, big trends in our field that really struck me, and maybe I hope you'll find these interesting as well, and you'll certainly experience this if you come to the conference. But even if you don't, let me just go over what's going on here that I think is really important for all of us. Number 1, psychotherapy is no longer the talking cure. We don't just talk about problems week after week. We are a very roll-up-your-sleeves experiential profession. We have developed a range of tools where we can make change happen in our sessions. And a lot of it has to do with using ourselves as an instrument of change. A lot of it has to do with understanding the mind-body connection. A lot of it has to do with understanding how the human nervous system works in a different way, so that when a client comes into our offices, that we can begin to really have the expectation that by the end of that session, that client is going to walk away and they're going to have a very different experience of whatever the issue they brought into us. That I find so impressive about how our field is evolving. Another thing that's coming out of conversation after conversation is how increasingly we're becoming more effective at customizing our interventions. There was a day when I was coming into the field where there was a kind of a one-size-fits-all concept, that you had a method, a technique, and you applied it to everybody who came through your door, no matter what. Well, We've learned so much about different people's learning styles, about how the brain operates, about the different kinds of temperaments, different ways of understanding and fine-tuning our interventions, that we have an ability to individualize what we have to offer people and have a whole range of treatment choices that enables us to both be more effective and to accelerate the process of change and to customize it. The other thing that really makes I find inspiring about our profession is how we keep up with the times. The culture is changing. And many of the contributors in this year's symposium, their specialty is really understanding how can we adapt our tools to understanding the different experience, for example, of kids growing up in the digital age, of younger couples who have different expectations of intimate partnership than previous generations have had, of the way in which technology is changing the expectations that clients have of coming into our office. They're no longer willing to be patients. Patience is in very short supply in today's world, as you may have noticed. And then the last thing is that the whole nature of practice and private practice is really quite different in today's world, certainly than when I got out of graduate school. It's not automatic that we can move into a private practice 3 or 4 years once we've gotten out of graduate school and we've perhaps worked on an agency or served some kind of professional apprenticeship. So at the conference, you'll see a range of innovators, people who are bringing together clinical sensitivity with a business savvy that we didn't have in our field in years past, that's more and more of a part of what it means to be a psychotherapist. More and more people understanding how to use the web, how to use the breakthroughs in marketing technology and know-how in today's world, and realizing they're not irreconcilable to being a responsible clinician. So, Symposium 2015 will be upon us in a few short months. I'm announcing today that the Symposium 2015 website has gone live. You're going to have an opportunity come March 26th through 29th to come to Washington, D.C., to be here face-to-face, to be part of this Mardi Gras atmosphere, to meet some of the leading figures in the field, people like John Kabat-Zinn, John and Julie Gottman, Dan Siegel, Diane Ackerman, Dick Schwartz, Esther Perel, and others, a faculty of 125 of the best and the brightest in the field. But even if you're, for whatever reason, you can't come to Washington, D.C., I urge you to press the red button on this page and to take a look at our symposium program. We've worked really hard to put this together, and it really is it's a great preview for people who are going to come to the conference of what they may experience. But even if you can't come to the conference, take a look of what we're putting together as the big picture of psychotherapy for the 21st century. It may not be exactly a genie's lamp. It may not have an answer to every one of your clinical questions, but I think we've addressed just about the whole range of clinical issues that most people I know are dealing with in their practices. So it's a roadmap to understanding where psychotherapy is today and for finding your way about where you are right now and where you want to be, developing your vision of how you want to develop as a psychotherapist, whether or not you come to Washington, D.C. or not. And I really hope you do, because if you do, and you have this face-to-face atmosphere of inspiration and celebration, the Mardi Gras that is the Networker Symposium, I think you're going to have an experience that you'll never forget. In any case, one way or the other, the Networker is here to serve you, whether through the symposium, the Networker magazine, our CE offerings. So I very much look forward, on the behalf of Psychotherapy Networker, to accompanying you on your professional journey moving on into the future as you experience the colors of your tomorrow.